Phase 2 or step 2 of the tutorial for HTML. What you'll do is you'll take a look. What we have so far is you've just set up a table, and we are now going to format the table and add items onto the table. When you open up the index, what it will look like currently is like this, and they'll see, let me just pause for a second. Okay, so the table is there. With where we want the logo to be, where we want our heading to be, where we want the buttons to go to the different pages, and whatever else we want done here. The big issue is we want this to be quite a bit smaller, as well as we want the borders to look different, etc. Now, in the code, the HTML already tells, NetBeans already tells me the height attribute is not allowed in the element table. It doesn't like this because all of these sort of things should be done in the CSS, which we've got in our style.css. This has been linked already in the head. We did that in the first step. So whatever we do here will come across here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this reference here. So it will just say table over there. Now, in my style sheet, I'm now going to say the table tag. So now whatever I put here is going to apply to any table attribute. So I can say there width is 100%. Semicolon is how you separate them. So table open curly brackets, you then give the attribute full colon and then the value of that attribute. Then for the next attribute you put a semicolon and then you can give the second attribute. This is the styles of this tag. So the table tag is going to have a width 100. Now realize any table that is created is going to have this. So if you have more than one table inside your things, like I don't have a table inside of that table, you might not want to apply it, and we'll go into how to deal with it then after this. Okay, so height, width 100%, and then we'll have border. Now, when you're dealing with borders in style sheets, you can't just have a border or borders equal to 2. It's a bit more complicated. You have to specify the border width and the border style. So you'll see there border style at the bottom, and we're going to say there border style, and you press Control Spacebar. Remember, Control Spacebar is your friend. That will come up with suggestions for you and wherever you're at. Now, if it doesn't come up with suggestions, it normally means that you've coded something incorrect earlier on. Then in which case it won't come up with any suggestions because it doesn't understand what you're doing. Or probably because you don't understand what you're doing. Anyway, if you go further down, you'll see there's the different types of borders that are there. In this case, I'm just going to make it a, let's go for a ridge border. Just so I can see it quite clearly, I'm going to say 4. Now that we've done that, let's go back to our table and let's press F5. Now the biggest thing you'll notice, it does have a ridge around the outside of it. However, you also notice that now there's no borders on the inside, and the reason why, the table tag has got this applied to, but the individual TDs have not got them applied to. So in your cascading style sheet you have to be very specific to each entity. So now we're going to look at, I could simply say TD tag. I want the TD tag to have a border width of 3 and border style of, and this would apply to every single TD tag, which, remember, your TD is your table data tag, and I could say I want this to be groove. So we've got original groove, and you'll see this will then put them back with your borders. However, I want to be more specific. I want my image, which is going to be here, to have a specific type of border. I want my buttons to have a different type of border, my logo, my heading, and so forth. So to do that is going to be quite more difficult. We have to actually specify which entities we're referring to, and the best way to do that is by the use of classes. So you can associate a name with a cell or with a attribute. So to show you that quickly, I'm going to go class is equal to, this is where my logo is going to go, so I'm going to call it logo. Logo cell, because there's a cell, or a table data if you will. And this class here is my heading, so I'm going to call it class equals heading cell. So I'm just giving them logical names that I know I'll be able to refer to. These here are my buttons, where my buttons to the different pages is going to be. So I'm going to call it class is equal to button cell. It's recommended you keep to a similar naming convention, otherwise you will get very confused. And also you choose them logically. Another example of what I could potentially do is call them R1, C1, so that was row 1, column 1, etc. But that's can be quite tedious. But yeah, all three of these are the same, so I've just put them into the same class, so it would apply to all three of those cells. This TD here is those little picks at the side, so I'm going to call it pick cell. And I'm going to call this TD over here class main. Well, this is where the data is, I suppose, all the information. Info cell. And then over here is another pixel. Now, once we've named all our different entities we want to have that formatting, and remember this can be applied to anything. I mean, you can put classes to any tag, so a paragraph tag, a row tag, etc. And actually I'm going to do that because we want to specify the heights of the rows, so I'm going to do that. I'm just going to pause the video and then quickly name all the rows, and then I'll go on how to actually give those values. Now, so the biggest thing is, in this style sheet, when I referred to table, this applied it only to the table, and your TD tags didn't have any border. That's why we only had a border around the outside. This TD here will then apply to every single TD, but we don't actually want to do that. We want to specify each table data itself. So all we did is we added a class name to each cell that would be different. So here we've given it logo cell, heading cell, button cell. So these we give them class names to each of our records. So that class property allows us to refer specifically to that from our style sheet. So now, to how I would code how that should look like is I would go dot logo cell, and then I would give it the attributes I wanted to. So for my logo cell, I want to have quite a thick border. So I'm going to say border dash width of 5, and I want it to be let's go to the groove, ridge groove, okay, or whatever. Now, the other thing that we would also want to be looking into here, and you'll see that only that cell's now got there. Another thing we also might want to specify is what width we want this cell to be. Now, we've got here row 1, and here's our first cell in row 1. So what we can do is we can also specify how wide we want that. But now remember, this one only takes one cell, so that's fine. But this particular one, heading cell, takes 3 columns. So I'm less likely to actually specify the width of this one because it's spanning over 3 columns. I'd rather then go down here where this is individually column 2, column 3, column 4. So here I can specify column 1, and here I can specify column 2, 3, and 4, 4's width. So I'm going to take a look here, and I'm going to say width of this column is going to be, let's say 20%. I can mess around with that later. And remember, the rows is where you would stipulate the height. So for example, my first row, I want to only be, let's say 10-15% of the frame. For argument's sake, I have no idea what that will look like. And dot R2, also height even less. I'd maybe want this to be a static of 100, and so forth. Now what you'll take a look at is now when we refresh this page, which I need to go back to, which I'm putting the wrong one here, F5, you'll see the size of this is now made smaller. You can't see the other rows because I haven't gone through and given them attributes, or each of these cell attributes. I'm going to do that now, and then I'll restart this video. This is a quick side note on color. For my heading cell, I'm wanting to choose a background color, and I wanted to show you how you can be very specific on what color you want. So if you've got an image somewhere that you like and you want to be specific about the color, what you do is you open it in let me just go to, let's say go over here. I'm going to open an editor with GIMP, which is the GNU image manipulation program. So it's an open source manipulation image editor. There's obviously multiple different, any sort of graphics editor you choose will have this feature. But what you can do is you choose a color picker and you pick the color you want. So for example, if I want this weird pink color here, which, yeah, then you click on the color, it'll give you down there HTML notation. That HTML notation is a hexadecimal code for the numbers of red, green, and blue. So you'll see the R is 241. If you took F1, F1 actually is the hexadecimal number for 241. 11 is a number, or 11 represents the hexadecimal number for 17. 67 is the hexadecimal number for 103. So it's got the RGB equivalent inside the hexadecimal number, and this you can then copy across into our BG color. You put a hash in front of it, you then paste that notation, and then what you'll see is that a cell will take on that color. Sorry, my voice is going. So now if I press F5, you'll see that the top cell, or the heading cell, has taken on the background color that I specified in from that HTML notation. So you can be much more specific on the color there. Sorry, my voice is going with the illness, the man flu. But yeah, okay, I'm going to pause again and finish off the rest of the class cascading style sheet attributes and properties and things. Okay, the next step of this exercise, we finished our style sheet. So each one of our classes, our heading cell, our button cell, pic cell, info cell, whichever classes you have set up, you've now specified. One thing I should have done is also specify the width of this, but it looks like it's getting it fine anyway. But you can specify any of your attributes. One thing a little bit tricky I did do, well, not that tricky, is I did set up a specifically right border. So instead of actually specifying the whole border, I could actually specify what the right border would look like. So I made a solid right border, and you'll see in the actual HTML this on the side as only a right border, nothing on the left or bottom. That could be a little style feature you can mess with. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to add images into here. So we're going to add a logo, and then we're going to create a button for our 3 pages. So this will be our home, this will be health things, and this will be recipes or whatever. And then down here I would also just two pictures. Now I'm going to show you quite a little nifty trick on here with regards to making a button look a bit more cool, and we're going to do this based on mouse over. So basically it's a little bit of JavaScript which will, when the mouse goes over, it will change the image, or what you could do is change the style sheet property. So this border changed from an outset, I think it is at the moment, let me just check what it is. You could change it from button cell, which has got an outset, you could change it from outset to inset when your mouse goes over it, or for example when you click it, so that it can look like it's actually following that attribute, and you can make this into that image into a hyperlink in here. Okay, so let's first thing you're going to do is you're just going to look for the images you want. I'm not going to bother keep recording this. I'm just going to look for some images on Bacon, and I'm then going to create, I'm going to choose a background color, and I'm going to create images for the text Bacon, because I don't think I want to find the text Bacon on Google, and the text health, and the text what is it, recipes. Okay, I'm going to pause this. Wish me luck finding this stuff. Okay, I've downloaded some of the images I want, including what I'm going to be using for the button. This little bit of a tutorial section is just going to be on how to edit or manipulate images, just basic editing. I'm just using GIMP, which is an open source image editor. And what you'll see here on the left hand side is your toolbox. You can choose how your windows are laid out. You can also combine them if you want. Sometimes I actually prefer the combined windows layout. I can't remember how to do it though, single window mode, and you'll see that then all of them are in one layout. Another important thing you'll need to work with is your layers, which I don't know why I can't see my layers. I think there's a shortcut, Control L, Windows key L, Control. So okay, so my layers are probably down there, but the looks of it, there's only one layer in here currently, so Control L was a shortcut. Anyway, the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to crop it to get rid of this clear background, because I want these to be very rectangular buttons. So for cropping, you'll just use this tool here, which is like one of those edge knives or whatever you call them, and I'm going to make it rectangular. Now the nice thing about this, instead of paint, is you can actually rectify your selection once you've already selected it without resizing it, which is nice. Okay, so I'm thinking I'm kind of wanting that to be the selection. All I did is double clicked and then it made it into that, and now I'm wanting to put text here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just save this before I add the text. I'm obviously going to have to want to add everything. So background button .xcsv, xcf, which is the GIMP's default value. Let me just pause for a second, then we'll go through. So now that I've cropped the image, I want to add text to it. So it's as easy as clicking on text and then clicking where you want. Now here's to specify the size of the text. You probably want it quite large. I don't think I want pink either. I'm going to make it, I think white might be a bit too, let's just try black. Okay, we're just going to put in there, the first one is going to be home. Take me home. We'll take a look at that text. I'm not so happy with this text, but let me just move it to the right location. And let's just make it bigger. So in which case to make it bigger, then you'll check that the text properties, you can also go through, bold it and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, tomato. And what you'll notice here, though, you'll see a new layer has been made. So here's my bacon layer. So if you untick the eye, you can hide different layers and you can work with this here. So in any image manipulation program, layers is a big factor. But now, here's another thing you want to keep an eye of when you create images or create buttons or whatever for your page. There's such a very important thing called CLF when web designing, and that's common look and feel. So for example, this text right here is size 126, which means that every other button's text should also be size 126. So I need to make sure I can fit in a recipe in 126 font size as well, which works. The next one is, what was the next one we wanted to put in? We wanted to put in health. Okay, so it looks like 126 will be fine because it'll fit everything in there. So I'm happy with 126. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to do home. I keep losing the size. And then now we are going to save this as a PNG, and we're going to save each one of them. So we're just going to edit the text and save as a PNG. To do that, you'll go File and you'll go Export, and you'll export it as whatever file type. PNGs are your quite common ones, especially with transparent backgrounds that can hold complex data. If you want to keep detailed images but a bit larger scale, use JPEG, but you do need some form of image compression program so you know they don't have to download massive files to get the image. And I'm going to finish these and then I'll continue again. Okay, so I've now finished all my buttons and all that sort of stuff, so let's just change the view so you can see it. So these are my three buttons, health, home and recipe, and this is my logo, my picture one, and my JPEG. One other little bit of editing advice I want to give is this has got a white background, and potentially I don't want a white background to this because I might change the color of my cells. I mean, obviously I don't think I'm going to keep that pink, but I want to change the color of the cells, so I don't want to have to be limited to white. So I'm just going to show you how you can remove a white background and to save it as a more usable logo. So all you do is you first go to your selection wizard tool, and that's on the top left here. It's a little wizards one with a little flash at the top, and when I click on it, you'll see it will select everything except the text, so everything of the same color. Now what you'll notice here is in this selection it's missing out a couple of these points here, so I'm not going to be so precise. You just press shift and it will add whatever else you select to that. I mean, obviously the more exact you are, the better it will look in the end. I'm not going to be too exact right now though. Just get all the main parts out, and then also so you press shift and you'll see a little plus sign on your icon we'll put there. Now if I press shift and click here, now I also select the inside of the bacon, so it'll remove the additional areas selected. Okay, so I'm not going to be too specific, but then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to revert your selection, so in other words invert, sorry, and what that'll do is it will select the exact opposite to what you've selected currently. So obviously it'll now select the actual bacon inside and the logo around the outside. I'm then going to right click on that, and I'm going to go select jar. So with this selection I want to float. Now this goes into the layers that I was talking about. When you go select float, you'll see that there will become a new layer here, and this new layer, it's a temporary layer, so it's highlighted with that double weird thing here. I don't know how to explain that. You right click and you say to new layer, so this will create this just the bacon area is a separate layer from the white background. And now you'll check if I unhide the logo background, you'll see that it becomes this checkered. Now that checkered represents that it's transparent. So I'm going to delete this layer because I don't want the background. But now it becomes a little bit of editing here to get rid of all these weird little spots. Again, I'm not that fussed right now, so I'm not going to be too exact about it. But ideally, you would want to spend a bit of time and remove every single little random white dots if you want it to look really nice. Anyway, so there I've got a bacon inside. I would also suggest you cropping it. The reason why is you don't want to make the users download additional data for no real reason. And then you would export it. Now, when you export it, you can't export it as a JPEG. A JPEG has to have a solid background. Only your PNGs or GIFs have, well, there might be other ones, but so you can make it a GIF or you can make it a PNG. So I'm going to make mine a .png file. Stupid. Sorry, I'm going to make mine a PNG file. I'm going to export it to that. Yeah, why are you being an idiot? The GURN does not match the. You know what? I actually put here the file type I chose. Have to choose the right file type. Damn it. Okay, there we go. PNG. Okay. So now I go and I save it and I export. So now I'll have the logo being transparent. So the next step is now we want to actually add the logo into our HTML. So we go into our cell, we take a look in our first cell, our logo cell here. This is where we want the image to be. So the first thing we do is we use image tag, which is img, and the big important part of img is the src component, which then will say where is the source of this image. So src is the source, that's the attribute there. And all I did is I pressed Control Spacebar. Remember, Control Spacebar is a shortcut that you really should use in NetBeans. And you'll see it'll give me the options of where you want the source to be. So I want the source to be images, and Control Spacebar again, I want it to be the logo.png. Very important, .png, not JPEG. And what you'll notice is that, let me just finish the tag, is that it's logo.png, not just logo. You have to refer to the actual extensions as well. If you do not refer to the extensions, it will not show you that image. Now, logo.png is there. Another big thing, which maybe is less common nowadays, but certain people set their browsers to not download images, or if you put your mouse over it, you want it to say something. So this is just the alternative text that will be displayed if the image is not seen or when the mouse is over. So in this case, I'm going to say bacon info. Okay, so let's just quickly check that the image has been inserted, and I think this is the end of step 2 of this tutorial. The bell's gone, and we shall, let's take a look at what it looks like. It's the end of this step. Okay, so we've got our bacon inside on the left there, and we've got our table structure. So I could change the background of this cell, and it would just show up in the center there, or over this. We would want to manipulate this a little bit, but we'll get into that next one. Oh yeah, I hope this has helped. Goodbye, you are the week's link.